Welcome to the module where we'll be studying the present, middle, passive, indicative forms. So this covers Mounts, chapter 18. We are skipping 17. Chapter 17 will be covered in Greek 2, and we're going from the present, active, indicative forms from chapters 15 and 16 to chapter 18 to learn the middle and passive forms. When we learn the present, active forms in our last module, we discovered that the way we form or conjugate the verb, so let's say, for example, the verb luo, which again means I am loosing. Well, the way we formed the present active form was that we took the stem of the verb, lu, and we added to it the primary active suffixes. So we added o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi or sin, and that gave us the forms for the present active indicative. In this module, we'll be learning the forms for the present middle passive indicative. And the way it's formed is that you take the stem of the verb, like luo, so in this case it'd be lu, add to it the connecting vowel, and add a different set of what we call the primary passive middle suffixes. These primary passive or middle suffixes are mai, sai, tai, meta, sithe, nentai. These are the suffixes for the first person singular, second person singular, third person singular forms, and for their plural forms. So let's say this again one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mai, sai, tai, meta, sithe, nentai. Now notice that the second person singular form, sai, has an asterisk. And the reason why is because, at least for the present middle and passive indicative, you're actually not going to see the sai. The sai suffix is actually going to undergo a change because you add a connecting vowel to it. So whenever you add a connecting vowel to sai, it undergoes some changes. Let's see what the verbs forms look like using our paradigmatic verb luo. If you drop the omega, the stem is lu, and I'll be using this stem for the following paradigm. To form the present middle passive indicative, you take the stem, add a connecting vowel, and then the primary middle passive suffixes. Notice that for the English translation, the rightmost column, I've given two translations. The first translation is more common. The passive voice translation occurs far more frequently than, say, the middle voice translation, which is in parentheses. And I'll explain the middle voice translation in the subsequent slides. But for now, let's go over the forms of the present middle passive indicative. So for the first person singular present middle passive indicative, the form of the verb using the stem lu is luomai. And luomai can mean either I am being loosed, or it can mean I myself am loosing. And which translation do I use when I see the word being used? It depends on the sentence. The context of the sentence will make it obvious that one of these translations, the passive middle, will not work, and you have to choose the one that makes the most sense. But it just so happens that the passive translation is more frequent in the New Testament than the middle. So I would suggest whenever you see this form, and with this form, you know that it can be translated either passively or in a middle voice way. Choose the passive translation first and see if it works. And if the sentence makes no sense as a passive voice translation, then try the middle. I'm going to skip the second person singular form for now because of the changes in the vowels that take place. And let's go over the third person singular form. How do I say he, she, it is being loosed? It's luatai. So again, you take the stem, the connecting vowel, add the suffix, and these three components together make the present middle passive indicative. To say that we are being loose, the first person plural form is luamitha. To say you all are being used, second person plural form is luesthe. And to say they are being used, the third person plural form, it's luantai. But what about you are being loose, singular? Well, we would think that if you add lu plus the connecting vowel epsilon plus psi, the form you would think you would see is luisthai. Luisai. But you never see this form actually ever occur in Greek because the sigma is a consonant that does not linguistically like being sandwiched between a short vowel and another vowel. And so whenever a short vowel is placed in front of the sigma tends to drop off and the remaining vowels actually combine. So what happens is the epsilon and alpha combine to form an eta, and this iota subscripts. And so the final form for the second person singular, you are being loosed, is lu-a with an iota subscript. And without this iota subscript, you are spelling the verb form wrong, so make sure you include it. And for all verbs in the present middle passive indicative, you will see this ending, a, as the final form, which occurs because when you add the connecting vowel with psi, the sigma drops, the remaining vowels combine to form an eta plus an iota subscript. So the forms for the verb luo, I am being loosed, you are being loosed, he, she, it is being loosed, we are being loosed, you all are being loosed, they are being loosed, are as follows. And can you say them with me? Luamai, lue, luatai, luamitha, luesthe, luantai. One more time. Luamai, lue, luatai, luamitha, luesthe, luantai. Again, you have one form. These are the forms right here, but they can be translated two ways, either in the middle voice or the passive voice, but the passive voice is more frequent, and so you should try the passive voice translation first. Now let's go over the use of the passive middle indicative forms. One of the primary uses is the passive voice. And if we recall, the passive voice is a sentence construction where the subject is acted upon or receives the action. So a good example here is ego blepo ton poion, which is I'm seeing the boat, which is an active voice. And see, now let's look at the passive voice construction of the same sentence. Ta ployen blepetai hupamu. The boat is being seen, and this is your present passive indicative form of the verb, blepo. And then we have the agency shown by the prepositional phrase hupamu. In fact, whenever we have a passive voice construction, there are several different ways to show agency. So if the main sentence construction is the boat is being seen, the boat is being seen, then how do I say the boat is being seen by me? Well, there's actually several ways. You can say, as we have here, hupa plus the pronoun in the genitive. So hupa mu would be the boat is seen by me. That's an example of direct agency. An example of intermediate agency is when we take the preposition dia plus the genitive. And so this would be diamu, diamu, diamu. And that could also be translated as by me or through me. And then we also have agency described by a sentence construction called impersonal means, where we take the preposition en plus the dative form of the pronoun. So in this case, it would be moi. And so en plus moi could also be translated as by or with me. And then lastly, you don't even need a preposition. You can actually drop the preposition and simply write moi. And this would also be translated in the same way as en moi, by, or with me. So this chart right here illustrates the three main ways that one can describe agency in a passive voice construction.